Hi, it's Orange Gearle here with Mix It Up Monday for June 2016, and I am fussy cutting a great little camera that I got on a card in a swag bag from the paper issue store. In fact, we're going to work with some acrylic paints today, and I got all of my ideas for colors from the swag bag. I'm working with a black and white photo, and I want to work with some teal and orange and gray. When I was flipping through a couple of swag bags, those cards just kind of popped out to me, and I was like, I want to do a layout with those colors. And so I'm using this Dilutions paint, which should be available in the store, except they just had a big sale, so it might not be there right now. Not sure. Anyway, I'm just using a flat brush, and I'm painting little squares. They're about 3 by 3, and I want them to be kind of messy. Because I don't know, I just like it better that way. So I'm using just some really cheap acrylic paints. It's old even, like I've probably had it for, I don't know, even 10 years. It's just for my stash. It's orange, and I'm going to add some gray in here, gray paint, which I think it actually says that it's silver, but it looks more gray to me also. I'm working with a photograph that I made in black and white of my daughter and her little cousin, her little favorite cousin, and they were off at the farm with Grandma and Grandpa, and they were being sheep whisperers, which is going to be the title of my layout here. That gray card you see there that has the holes in it was from the swag bag, and that was kind of the first one that I pulled out, and I was like, ooh, I love these circles. I cut it off so that it would be 3 by 3 because pretty much everything I'm working with is 3 by 3 except the photograph is a little bit smaller. It's more like 2 3/4 or something like that by 2 3/4. Use a little stencil there by Heidi Swap and some more of that orange paint. Now I've watered down the paint, and I apologize you can't see up the top. I'm working just with a acrylic stamp block, and I put any of the extra paint that I used on that stamp block, so all 3 colors are up there, and I just added a little bit of water. And then I added some splatters using just my brush. Now I sped this up really fast because I realized that I changed my mind a lot. I was really unhappy. It wasn't turning out the way that I wanted or the way that I pictured in my head. And so I just kept moving things around. And so that's what you're going to see me doing, and that's kind of boring. But I also wanted you to know that that's kind of the process. I also went through my stash during all of this, and I pulled out anything that I could find that were the right colors. All of these cards, I think, were from swag bags, but I did pull a few things, and once I turned it just like that, I was like, oh, that's what I wanted. And I knew then, and from then it starts to come together. So anyway, most of the cards that I got, I cut to 3 by 3, like I said, or I ripped them, or in the case of that piece of paper there that is gray. I decided I got them all from the swag bags, like I said, and I just cut lots of different ones. Hopefully, I'll be able to use those in other layouts or other projects, but. And then I went through my stash and I pulled things like, you'll see me pull out some things from, oh, I'm trying to think, some Maggie Holmes, I think, comes out. I also pulled some items from Ellie's Studio, all kinds of things that I found that were just the right colors in some of the things that I had that were more recent, I would say, from the shop. Do you see that this with the arrow? I wanted to use that so badly. In fact, that was one of the first things I pulled out of that, and the gray with the little circles card were the first 2 things that I pulled out of the swag bag, and I was like, oh, I love these colors together. That's what I'm using. I don't end up using that, but you'll see me try to use this card like 100 times. I also had lots of things, like I have trouble in this layout with thread. I never have trouble with thread. I had all kinds of trouble getting my thread to work, and problems with the letters. I had to move them like 5 times. Right now I'm using a Pitt pen in gray just to outline that, to make it give it a little more definition. And here comes the Elle Studio. And the Ellie Studio stuff, I just knew that there was a lot of gray in there, and that kind of teal color. So I pull it out and you'll see me. This is what I do. I just pulled everything out and I'm just putting stuff over on the white paper that I might use. Some of it I know I'm going to use, or I'm pretty sure I'm going to use, so I put it where I think I might use it. Some of the other stuff I just put over on the white and separate it out and go, okay, this might be something I'll use. So you're going to see me mess around with this a little bit more, but we're getting closer, and I'm starting to not feel as icky about it, because when I first started, I'm telling you, I was like not convinced that this was going to work. I knew I wanted to cut the side and put some pattern paper behind it. And I also knew I wanted to work with some thread here. So what ended up happening is, as I'm adding this and I'm struggling with, I'll let you know that one of the things that the process is going through my mind is I'm trying to add a little bit of color to each one of those squares. And what I end up doing that I feel like works a little bit better is I actually added, there I go, using this card again. I actually tried to keep whatever the paint color was. I tried to keep everything else I put on there, for the most part, that same color. So the thread is the same teal. I have orange thread that I'm adding here to the orange. And then I had a little bit of pops of gray on some of those as well. With a few exceptions, I kind of stuck with that, and that's what ended up making me go, oh, I kind of like this. This isn't so bad. But it wasn't at all what I had in my head. And so I really wasn't very happy with it until the very, very end. Then I was like, oh, well, this isn't as bad as I thought. But it really wasn't. I struggled. I cut a bunch of the video out because I was just sitting there staring at it. And so that's even more boring than watching me move stuff around. So what I did here is now I'm starting to glue everything down. And my original title, Sheep Whisperers, changes a little bit. That was actually something that I got this photo via text from Grandma and Grandpa. They were staying at the farm with Grandma and Grandpa, and she texted us photos, and she said they're being sheep whisperers right now. And so I wanted to I thought, oh, that's a great title for that photograph. So that's how I got my title. That button there, I think, is from a Flair for Buttons. And there I go, messing with the thread again. Like, it won't stay in place. I get it too far under. I mean, all kinds of things happen. But like I said, I ended up just pulling a bunch of those little itty bitty items that you get in your swag bag, which I just love. All those cards, I just cut them up. I ripped them. I glued them down. Then I went ahead and grabbed just items from my stash that matched those colors as best as possible. Now, because I went with messy squares, I also wanted my cutting around the side to be messy. Sometimes I use my cutter for that, and sometimes I just go ahead and cut it wonky to begin with. And so that's what I did here. And then what I'm going to do, and you'll see this in a few minutes, is I'm going to glue that down, and then I'm going to stitch all around the outside, which I do off camera. I stitch all around the outside of it, and then I do a little bit of stitching, like I stitch some of the letters down, and I do some stitching on a couple of the cards. The other thing that you can't see that's kind of off camera, what's going to happen here is I do end up putting something up in that upper right corner, just to kind of balance it out and give it a little pop of color up there. But for some reason, when I started, as you can see, I keep moving my layout up a little bit. And as it's moving up, it's getting off camera, so you can't see the top. So sitting out on my desk, I have these awesome acrylic pieces that I just gotten in the mail recently. And I just had them on my desk, and I was like, oh my goodness, there are those two colors in there. And so I just grabbed the hello and these little stars, and I end up using those. There's my stitching. And I end up using the hello and those little stars kind of as little pieces of embellishment around. I also add a little spritz here. I just used some Heidi Swap, I think, and some Mr. Huey's, just to add a little bit more color. And I'm not going to make you watch me put all these down. The only other thing I add is just a little bit of journaling on some gray cardstock that basically just says where they are and that it was in June. And then I'm done. So hopefully you'll see those flare button up in the corner and that little piece in the still photographs that'll be coming up here in a second. I hope that you play along and use some acrylic paint on a layout or project this month. Make sure that you join us in the Facebook group, Paper Issues Friends and Fans, and I've linked all of that. Join us. You might get featured on Instagram or on our blog or on our Facebook page. Join us, and I hope you had a good time. Thanks for stopping by.